Alrighty everybody, and welcome back to Karatha's channel here. Today I'm going to be doing a quick little how-to guide. It's going to cover how I smelt efficiently, and then it's just going to be a little bit of background information on gear and such in and of itself. So I guess the first thing to note is this is actually my third time recording this video because I keep making a mistake with the showcasing of it. But if you look through all of the gear, there's a lot of gear that you could fit in here. When I was recording earlier, I actually had over 1,100 pieces. Now it's probably like, I don't know, half that. But because of that, I don't know what the cap is. It's maybe like 1,500, maybe 2,000. All I know is I hit the cap at least once a week, and it's quite annoying. So when you're looking at your heroes and you go ahead and are selecting their equipment, as a new player, the things you want to do first is you're going to forge these, and you want to click the gear here, and you want to make sure that you're selecting rare, elite, and epic equipment first. Once you no longer have a need for the mythic or the red gear, then you'll add that as a selector. And I do it by +4 levels at a time, and then I just do that once. So that way I could see whether or not I get a good substat. If it's worth keeping on that, then I will go ahead and roll up to 16 for a legendary gear. And that's basically how I choose what types of gear I want. Then if it is a good gear worth keeping, then I will lock it. Else I'll like, okay, like none of these I really have locked yet because I'm still waiting for better perfect substats. So none of them are locked currently, but because they're equipped, they won't show up in the selector for smelting. So that is very good to know there. After I'm done choosing the gear there, so something I failed to mention is that before I begin smelting, I go through all of my gear in the hero gear section, and I upgrade all of the gear that looks to have at least 2 or maybe 3 good substats to level 4. Then I will no longer need to select by the fodder gear, and I can choose metalize. So I'm going to swap over to the browser here real quick and just cover a couple of things. So I counted everything on my BIS tab for best in slot gear for all of the types of gear sets you're going to need, and basically you will need 33 attack sets, 32 HP sets, 20 crit rate, 18 crit damage, and then accessory will just be a single one for an Iruda. So because of that, what you need to know is you need a 2-to-1 ratio for attack and HP is the 2 ratio, and then crit rate and crit damage is going to be your 1 ratio. This is just for the gear sets itself. So for the 4-piece sets, you want a 2-to-1 ratio as well, and it's going to be a 2 ratio of the attack speed, which you need 7 sets of, and then the 1 ratio is going to be healing and energy, which is 4 and 3 sets respectively. So just note that there. And then let me hop over to my gear tab here, if I could find it. There's so many tabs here. Alright, gear tab. So basically the legendary is going to have 4 different substats. And then these top gear here, let me swap over back to my browser here. So these top 3 gear are going to be flat stats. So when you're rolling these are flat, so you could also get percentage on them. However, for the bottom, if I roll crit rate here, because it's a percentage, I cannot roll crit rate here. So that means when I'm choosing what types of gear I want to replace this by, and I'm looking at it, so for this piece, for example, I want to replace it with an attack main stat, and I cannot choose attack substat. If I do that, it won't find any gear whatsoever. However, I want to do the pieces that I'm missing from my build, which currently is a little bit of crit rate and some HP. So I'm going to do crit rate and HP as the selector. So then I could see all of the types of sets. So then I could further, so for these cookie cutter type builds, usually I just do everything, all sets. But then if it's a character like Luke or something, then I will just do show me only hero. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If it's a good piece of gear, lock it. If not, if you want better substats or something, then don't lock it. So now that that is over with, I will show you how to smelt here efficiently. So you have the 2-piece and the 4-piece sets here. So you want a 2 ratio of these two, and then a 1 ratio of these, and then all of these other ones aren't going to be very useful. If you're building a Neruda, then you will save the Hawkeye, but these isolated, basically the resist and defense set, will eventually become fodder. So for the 4-piece set, you want a 2 ratio of the gluttony to the 1 ratio of the healing and the energy. That's basically all I'm saying. The shield you could put on Zyda. If you aren't using her, then no worries about that. You could use this as fodder. So now that that is taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and select my hero set. And I already did this before, so I'm not going to have a whole lot. But basically, I wanted to select by the main stats first. So I'm going to do EX, all of the EXs, because the EXs are useless stats. I don't want to do attack, defense, and HP, because that is going to be my main, my top 3 gear. So I also want to include defense as a main stat, crit damage reduction as a main stat is useless, and then accessory accuracy and resist as a main stat are useless. So these are going to be the main selectors I could do, and generally what I do is for all of those 2 ratios, so that's going to be the attack and the HP, this is what I'm going to be using as my main fodder. So because I already did that, you didn't see here, but I went through probably like 15 or so of these, and I just auto-selected, smelted, auto-select, smelt. I don't even have to look at what they're going to be, just because the main stat is much more important than the substat is initially. So once you've done that for your whatever main pieces, then that's when you move on to the actual selecting of the substats. And I've also already done this, so it's likely not going to find much, but basically I always start with the EX stats here. So I found some for the 4-piece set, because I didn't do that in the earlier video, but basically all of these 4-piece set, all the 2-piece sets for the EX attack, HP, and defense, you're just going to auto-select that, and if it only finds one and you auto-select it, that's fine. It'll put it in the queue here, and then I could just choose another modifier. So I did all 3 first, then I'm going to do these 2, and then, oh look, I found a whole bunch here, so I'm going to go ahead and start smelting some of these. I actually want to put in some crit, because I already did a bunch of these. So I'm going to do 2 of these, and then I'm going to swap it to crit damage. There we go, and then I'm just going to auto-select there. And then I'm going to do this again. Alright, and then, yeah, I guess one more time. And then it does return any mats if it was used to upgrade, so you don't have to worry about that. The only thing it doesn't return is the gold cost. So now that I did those 2, we're going to do these and see if it finds things. And so, bam, I'm just getting rid of all of my useless substats that I don't need here. So yeah, that's pretty much what you're going to do for the types of sets that you need first. And then you're going to do the same thing for the, for these 4-piece sets as well. So let me go ahead and swap this. I do need more of the gluttony sets. So it's just going to be the same thing. I have all sets selected. I'm going to select this, and I have to do this again, or else it won't pop up. So I could go ahead and like add these, because I know they aren't going to be good. So you see it's added here, and I could choose to remove modifiers. So look, okay, I have more gear that I could use to select as fodder here. And boom, okay. Yeah, so you get the point. That's pretty much all you do. If you do this every day, you'll definitely find a lot of gear, and you'll be able to make a lot of extra copies out of the useless gear that you have, and it really helps with thinning down the deck. Once you're done with the EX stats, then I move on to secondary stats that aren't quite as useful for me. So that's going to be resist is always going to be 1, and then accuracy. So if this is a combo here, the only time I don't do that is if I need it for Emma. So for example, I'll just double check on like gluttony, like okay, like this isn't favorable, but this might be okay for Emma. So I will lock that just right here. And this is the only time I start checking stats, is if I need a specific substat for a character. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Defense isn't quite as useful. Crit damage reduction isn't as useful unless you're gearing them more for PvP. And that's pretty much it. That's my how to do things a little bit quickly and efficiently. And then if I go ahead and look through my equipment, like the bag is already much reduced. It's not doing the full time I would spend on here, but it's much more reduced. I guess the only final thing that I could add here is you could also just go through and say I wanted to do more of the HP sets. I could actually just go through and look at just defense sets as an example, and I could just auto select defense because I'm never going to use a defense set. So you could do that for defense set. For the 4-piece set, you could do that for shield. What else isn't really used? The resist set for the 4. This isn't ever used as well, so I could do that as and then Hawkeye if you need that. I wouldn't recommend I just use that more for whatever set you need, but yeah, that's pretty much everything I can impart on you at this time. So hopefully this helps and it was informative for you. And yeah, best of luck in your smelting adventures.